6:43 on this Monday morning. In today's Family First, we're talking about social media and its impact on kids. You might remember last week, the U.S. Surgeon General, Dr. Vivek Murthy, said he thinks Congress should put a warning label on social media apps, much like the warning labels you see on packs of cigarettes or bottles of alcohol. He said social media use is a contributor to the mental health crisis amongst young people. Well, joining us now on the show, Jeff Strabone, a professor of media, rhetoric, and communications at Connecticut College. He's joining me to talk more about this push. Good morning. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, glad to have you here. I'm curious to hear more of your thoughts about it. We just started talking about it just a minute ago. Wanted to make sure we got it on the air. First things first, what do you make of the Surgeon General's push here for this label? Of course, he can't mandate anything himself, but he is very strongly pushing for it. What are your thoughts?
His message is to Congress to ask them to put warning labels on social media platforms. And it's a great idea. It's probably not enough. We do regulate alcohol and tobacco and drugs to protect children, and social media is addictive. Companies like Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok are the dealers. Addiction is their product. And so we need similar kinds of laws to limit and regulate the harms that the Surgeon General is warning us are happening to children and their mental health.
Yeah, and Dr. Murthy echoed what you had just said. It's a good idea. That alone is not going to be enough. We want to make sure we don't sort of fall victim here to the perfect world fallacy. A label's not going to solve the problem, but how far do you think it would go, at least in helping to address the problem?
It would create a floor like the Surgeon General's warning on tobacco products did back in the 60s, but we're going to need a lot more than that. And it's not enough for government to tell parents to watch their children's habits. Your audience knows out there, the children know more than their parents do about these products and platforms. Parents are helpless. And it's useless to ask the companies to regulate themselves. You know, the free market's a wonderful thing when it works to make life better. The free market invented social media, but the free market's not going to regulate social media. That's where government needs to come in and protect our kids.
Yes, and of course there are some concerns that they could run into, specifically possibly First Amendment concerns, not just suppressing speech, but in this case it might be considered compelling speech. I think more interesting, though, is given that every social media site is programmed differently, its user interface is different, how would this be mandated in a way that every single social media site could comply? I suppose there's probably a number of possibilities. Have you considered what might work the best in your opinion?
Yeah. How about a time limit for under 18s where once you get to a maximum 1 hour or two, it turns off for the day? Right now, we have kids using social media for an average of 4.8 hours a day. I don't know how they're playing or learning if they're glued to their devices 4.8 hours a day, but why don't we start with a time limit for kids?
Yeah. How about the warning label itself? I know the best parallel I think we have is when the U.S. government started putting warning labels on cigarette packs and said it did seem to make a difference, but in a longer field of view, maybe over the course of about 10 years, people's attitudes towards whether tobacco is carcinogenic did go up. It took time. Do you see that being a component of this, just the awareness of the dangers?
Totally. The awareness is there. The action isn't. The labels are a first step, and the labels create a legitimacy for further action, because the labels say this is properly a concern of the Surgeon General. It's a health issue, it's a mental health issue, and you start from there. But without labels, you don't even have that first step of saying, we're government, we're the Surgeon General, we know this is hurting people, we've got to act. So it's a good first step, but it can't be the last step.
Sure. Like you said, parents in some cases are just powerless because they know less about the apps than the kids do. Jeff Strabone, thank you for taking the time to join us here this early in the morning. We certainly do appreciate your expertise on the subject.
Thanks for having me.
And a pleasure to have you. Thank you again. Have a good rest of your morning.